Hello, I'm Jim Lampley. Welcome to this look back at the stories behind Tyson Douglas, one of the most memorable fights in 30 years of boxing on HBO. Mike Tyson made his first trip to Tokyo in March 1988 for a rapid destruction of former titleist Tony Tubbs. By the time of Tyson's next Pacific crossing 2 years later, his life had become an earthquake, an unrelenting series of seismic tabloid shocks, and the specter of the big one loomed closer than anyone on this bad planet could possibly have imagined.
In February of 1990, 23-year-old Mike Tyson was about to enter the ring for the 38th time in his professional career. The fight was taking place in Tokyo, Japan, and his opponent, as usual, was paid little heed. This was just another demonstration of Tyson at the peak of his powers. The culmination of a career that began with a ferocious and memorable debut in the mid-1980s.
Right hand by Tyson.
Right to the head, and it's all over.
Wow.
Well, a lot of Tyson's early opponents were terrified because of his record and his manner, and the way he just came roaring out of the corner and was throwing punches nonstop.
He was doing one-round knockouts. He was doing it so spectacularly and so routinely that you could hardly help but get enthusiastic about this.
They're always drawn to the big punch. The big punch is something out of the primordial ooze that we cannot deny. Now, I've seen Tyson hit guys and just remove them from the consciousness of the earth.
In 1986, Tyson, at age 20, became the youngest heavyweight champion in history.
And we have a new era in boxing.
He wasn't just winning fights, and he wasn't just knocking out everybody. I mean, he was knocking them out in the first round, and it looked like this was his destiny.
By the end of 1989, Tyson had muscled his way to the top of the heavyweight ranks, and the only legitimate challenger left was Evander Holyfield. Their meeting was much anticipated, but slow in the making. So Tyson signed up for a quick payday against an undistinguished opponent, James Buster Douglas from Columbus, Ohio. A tall fighter with a generous reach, 29-year-old Douglas had shown flashes of a potential which had thus far gone unfulfilled.
In 1990, Buster Douglas was just another heavyweight out there who looked like a sitting duck for Mike Tyson.
Buster Douglas was one of the great underachievers of his time. He always was sort of perceived as a guy who really liked to fight. You know, he had a lot of tremendous physical talent. The big debate was, is anybody going to go to Tokyo to cover the fight?
The only important stage that Buster Douglas had ever been on before this fight was against Tony Tucker, a good fighter. And he was beating Tony Tucker until he ran out of gas.
That was like Mike Tyson, and he had a left-right combo that'd take your head off.
He had a heavy bag in his basement. He would work all day at a hard job, go home, hit this heavy bag, and train himself.
My father took me in the gym when I was 10. He was a center leader at the local gym here. I was on him about, wanting to come in and box.
Bill coached James, and he was probably harder on James than any one of his boxers because he wanted James to have all the opportunities that he never got in a professional race.
Bill was a nice man, but he was a no-nonsense guy. Buster sort of took after his mother, was just a sweet, kind, nice lady.
A lot of times James would want to play basketball in the gym, and Mrs. Douglas would come and get him out the gym and get him back into the boxing room so that he can continue his training. She wanted her son to be even better than her husband.
Buster Douglas.
After Douglas turned pro in 1981, in spite of his inconsistencies, he did go farther than his father had as a boxer. And in signing to fight Tyson, Douglas would have a chance, however far-fetched, to win the world title. But just 23 days before the bout, everything changed when Buster's mother, Lula Pearl, died of a stroke at age 47.
I called James and I said, let's cancel the fight. He said no.
I was more determined. I told him, I said, I'm all right. And I think that even helped the intensity even more.
He told me that she would want him to go on. He was very close to his mom. Before she had passed, she come to his house and she was real worried about him fighting Mike Tyson because she had heard what an animal he was. And he goes, no, I'm okay, I'm going to beat him. She had went and told one of her girlfriends, oh, Buster's going to beat Mike Tyson, So that really gave him confidence, too.
She was having her battles, but yet she was still looking out for her baby. I mean, that's love, you know.
Soon after his mother's death, Buster resumed training, keeping his grief private until one moment after a workout, a few days before the fight.
He had his head down with a towel over his head, and I picked the towel up, and he was just sobbing, just broke down, and it was because of his mom, you know. That's the first time that I had saw that, and I thought, oh.
It was the weirdest feeling I've ever had in a fight, because the people were totally, I wouldn't say unenthusiastic, but they were so polite. It was the dullest crowd I've ever seen. I've never seen anything like it.
I always say that in the Tokyo Dome, you could hear a rat piss on cotton. That's how quiet it was.
When I went over into the dressing room to check Tyson's gloves, he was walking like an animal in there, storming back and forth, looking at me like he wanted to kill me, you know. So Mike Tyson was ready to fight. And when I left the room, I told him, I said, you know, you're going to get your ass kicked. But I got out of there real quick when I told him that.
When Douglas trotted into the ring, there was almost a sense of bemusement. We thought he was going to his doom, but he didn't.
Mike Tyson rushing toward the ring, wanting to get it on and get it over with.
When he got into the ring, I could see that he wasn't in top shape. And plus I had heard someone said he wasn't really doing any training and he was, you know, having a good time over there, and you can have a good time in Japan. But Douglas was in good shape. I remember that.
James Buster Douglas.
I noticed he was looking at me, trying to get the eye contact, do his usual stare down and stuff, but, you know, I was like paying him no attention, trying to show no fear.
Douglas insists that he's going to shock the world in this fight.
I don't know what Mike was thinking. If he knew he wasn't in shape, he should have went out there and threw everything he had in the first round, because he wasn't throwing any punches. After the first round, I felt that Mike was going to have a problem.
Very hard right hand by Douglas inside.
The way Mike started out, you could see his timing and his rhythm wasn't there.
I was sitting next to Don King, and Mike was getting beaten so badly. And after 3 or 4 rounds, I looked at Don King. I said, Don, is this really happening? I don't know, but I don't like it.
You're too flat-footed in it. Right. Okay? Trust in what you know. Do it. Let it go.
Incredibly, the self-proclaimed baddest man on the planet was struggling in the ring. His problems were just beginning. By the end of the 4th round, swelling had developed over Tyson's left eye, and his corner was shockingly unprepared to help him. They had neglected to bring a standard piece of equipment called an end swell, an ice-cold steel press used to reduce the swelling around the eyes of a battered fighter.
The disbelief didn't really set in until Mike's eye swelled and we began to watch what was going on in the corner. And suddenly it became clear they didn't have a cut man, they didn't have any equipment.
Well, the rule of thumb for swelling is put a cold compress on it. I made a cold compress in a rubber glove from down on the floor.
They were trying to put icy water into a latex glove to hold against his eye, which is like the little boy with his thumb in the dike.
I did what I had to do for that time for a mistake somebody made that was on the team. And being that I'm the leader of the team, I take responsibility. But it wasn't his eye being swollen. It was him making a mistake and getting hit with the punch.
Whatever went wrong is because of me. You know what I mean? And that's what I keep my, you know what I mean? Because when it goes right, I always say it's because of me it went right. And regardless if you have the best quarterman in the world, if you can't fight, it's useless.
If they hadn't had an end swell, it wouldn't have changed the outcome of the fight. You know what I mean? But it would have made them look a little better.
This is high drama, and the crowd here is greeting it by and large with stony silence.
And one of the things that was happening at ringside was you noticed the silence of the crowd. It was like they had gone to a movie and Godzilla was coming to eat up the town, and then, you know, Godzilla never showed up.
Finally, in round 8, Tyson found the opening he had been waiting for, when Douglas, emboldened in his role of giant slayer, dropped his guard for just an instant.
Buster started looking at his work. Yeah, you ain't so bad. Mike hit him with that uppercut, and boom, down he goes.
And there's a right hand uppercut, and down goes Douglas.
They pounded his fist on the canvas, and I said, oh, okay, he's all right. Checked my watch to see where we were at in the round. Knew the round was almost over. I said, okay, we're cool.
Fortunately, I was just, you know, caught with a glancing blow to where it really didn't do an effect to me. It knocked me down, but that was it.
When Mike hit him and knocked him down, it was like my kid getting knocked down. And at that instant, I wanted to reach through the TV and help him up. And he got up, like a man. He got up and he shook it off. And the rest is history.
Let's see what Mike can do to finish. And the bell ends to save Buster Douglas at the end of round 8.
He had put so much into that shot and to pull it off that it was gone. Mike normally would just swarm all over a guy when he had him hurt. And he just didn't have it in him.
And Mike has slowed down. Maybe a tiny bit arm weary.
He hits the guy with his best Sunday punch, and the guy gets up. He's like, oh, if that don't take, you know, the desire out of you, nothing will.
Douglas coming back with a look right. Tyson is wobbling. Douglas wailing away.
Tyson, who had absorbed tremendous punishment, was unable to summon the energy to capitalize on the knockdown. Douglas came back strongly in the 9th round and sensed that Tyson was a spent force in the 10th. The fight of Douglas's dreams was now the fight of his life.
I started popping him with them jabs, seeing he wasn't moving as much as he was before. Then I pivoted, you know, where I got leverage and came up with it, you know, a real good uppercut. Bow.
Oh, the uppercut! And I swear, if Mike Tyson's neck wasn't so big, it ripped his head off. When he hit him, I actually went like that. I swear to God, I did. I went like that. I thought maybe he knocked his head off. He hit him so hard with that uppercut. And then he just come with combinations and just drilled him. He fell right in our corner. I said, you're done. Stay down, Mike.
I said, oh, shit. That's what went through my mind.
What an uppercut by Douglas, and down goes Tyson.
And I'm thinking crazy. I'm saying they won't allow me to fight if I don't have the mouthpiece in my mouth. So I'm grabbing for the mouthpiece. It was over. I tried to get up, and I was hazy. I didn't know where I was at.
It's over. It's over.
Mike Tyson has been knocked out.
At the end of the fight, he asked me what had happened. And I said, I wasn't feeling too good. His eye was swollen shut. He wanted to break down and cry, but he held himself together. He took his butt whooping like a man.
And new heavyweight champion of the world, James Buster Douglas.
Let's go ahead and call it the biggest upset in the history of heavyweight championship fights.
Buster beat him at his best. And that myth about him not being in shape, that's not true. Because if he wouldn't have been in shape, he'd have been out of there in about the 2nd or 3rd round because Buster was humming him. He just got his butt handed to him, and that's the excuse that he tried to use.
Why did it happen, James?
Because I wanted it.
Why? Why did you win this fight that nobody on the planet gave you?
His mother.
In what way?
God bless her heart.
People around him were saying, let's go, let's get out of here.
You want to go, James? No, let him talk.
But that was his moment, and he wanted to speak. And I remember myself very clearly saying, let's just follow him as he's dealing with these extraordinarily human emotions.
I'm just feeling real good and finally able to exhale with all the things that have been going on that I had to keep inside. The main thing I wanted to do was express my joy for my father and my mom, but my father.
And Dad, this one is for you. I love you.
He's my hero. To take the baton, so to speak, and then just to fulfill a dream, not only for myself, but for him, was just the most rewarding thing in the world.
But in boxing, nothing is ever as simple as it seems. While the world had witnessed a stunning upset victory, Don King would brazenly claim that the real winner was Tyson.
I said, I told you, Don, I told you we were going to kick his butt. And he said, get away from me, I'm protesting. I said, protesting what?
King claimed that when Tyson knocked Douglas down in the 8th round, the count went long and should have been ruled a knockout in favor of Tyson. Though tradition holds that the defeated champion keeps his belts, in the chaos following the fight, Russell snagged one of Tyson's belts, figuring that in the event of a protest, possession is 9/10 of the law.
They were all looking for the belt. I gave it to Buster when we got back. I said they could protest it, but they can't take the belt.
At this stage of his career, he has recently been on the cover of national magazines, notably Sports Illustrated and The Ring magazine, a feature in People magazine. At 19 years of age, he has reached a level of eminence previously reserved in recent years only for Olympic gold medalists who came into the sport. He did not win an Olympic gold medal. In fact, he lost in the Olympic trials to Henry Tillman. But of course, professional boxing, an entirely different prospect than amateur boxing, and it has been kind to Mike Tyson. Here we go. He is a fast starter.
One thing we should mention, Jimmy, before the action heats up too much, is this is a 16-foot ring, very much to Tyson's liking.
Starting out, going to the body. A couple of those punches appeared low.
In the Carl Williams fight, we saw Jesse Ferguson go into the corner and onto the ropes and then counter with left hooks off the ropes.
Referee is Luis Rivera out of New York City. And already Ferguson has lasted longer than have some of Tyson's 12 first-round knockout victims. But now, Tyson got an uppercut through the guard.
A major league body puncher. One of the things that distinguishes him, even in the amateurs, Mike Tyson can throw great body shots. He takes what you give him, and right now Jesse Ferguson is just giving him the body.
But Ferguson is standing still and allowing Tyson to swing away at the ribcage.
We saw a few seconds ago one of the things that makes Tyson so special. He threw a tremendous left hook, missed with it, and didn't go off balance. Always in position to punch.
First sign of aggression from Ferguson there, but he went back into the shell.
If form holds true, Jesse Ferguson at some point in that strategy of laying on the ropes will come out firing with the left hook. And if he does, and if he connects with Tyson's chin, we may have one of the questions that surrounds Mike Tyson's career answered.
Come on, step back. Come on, look at this. Look at this.
Mike Tyson is pacing himself more at this point, Jim. Generally, he would rip punches with both hands without caring about what the opponent did in return. He has some respect for Jesse Ferguson's power. He is not letting his hands go with the speed and consistency that he did in his first 17 fights.
One good left. He seems to be gaining a little bit of confidence. "15 seconds to go in the round. Ferguson about to become the 6th of Mike Tyson's 18 opponents to make it through round 1. We'll be back. Ready for the beginning of round 2 in Troy, New York. Jesse Ferguson stepping out of his corner in the red trunks. The black trunks belong to 19-year-old Mike Tyson. Tyson's average bout to this point in his career lasted 2 minutes 58 seconds.
Ferguson has gone farther than the average Tyson opponent. As I mentioned, only the 6th of 18 men to face Tyson in his professional career to make it as far as round 2. We apologize for the quality of our audio at this moment. We are on our backup audio line. We'll stay with you. Now we're told that it's Tyson getting through the guard again.
And in that one brief combination, you saw the speed of Mike Tyson, the thing that makes him special. Not just power, but he really gets the punch there quickly.
Thus far, Tyson has been content to concentrate mostly on the body.
Ferguson a little bit with one of those body shots, Jim. Right now, Ferguson's just fighting a survival fight, trying to pull Tyson in close where he can't do it, you know, smother his punches. Tyson, on the other hand, is not being as busy as he normally would be.
Ferguson said that he absolutely would not try to wait Tyson out and drag him into later rounds where he hasn't been before. But it might not be an inadvertence. He's been as far as round 5. That was in his most recent bout against Mike Jamieson. TKO early in the 5th.
And in that fight with Jamieson, which did last into the 5th round, it seemed that Mike got a little bit discouraged. He was in with an opponent that just grabbed him and looked to survive, and he really didn't keep his concentration. Be interesting to see fighting the same kind of opponent here in Ferguson, who's not giving him very many punching opportunities, if he continues to stay on top and keep his concentration and keep in the fight.
Okay. You see that both fighters like to crouch over and get low as they deliver their punches. Their heads are going to be very close together through much of this action. And Jesse Ferguson, fighting defensively, appears to have made it as far as the end of round 2 against Mike Tyson. Round 3. Jesse Ferguson is only the 4th fighter to make it that far with Mike Tyson. Good right. We saw Ferguson recoil to the ropes, but that time Tyson did not attempt to follow up.
Two of the questions that boxing people have raised about Mike Tyson that have yet to be answered are his chin and his stamina. Right now, he's been in 3 tough rounds. Not tough in the sense he's taking a lot of punishment, but he's throwing a lot. And I think the pressure of the event has got to drain something out of him. He is not breathing heavily. He looks in pretty good shape at this point.
You would find almost no one in the arena who believed before this began that it would go to a decision. But if it were to go that far, certainly Tyson has won the first 2 rounds and is controlling the 3rd.
You see quickness in Mike Tyson that really you've never seen with a fighter of his build in the heavyweight division. Of course, Muhammad Ali was quicker. Of course, perhaps Floyd Patterson was quicker, although Customato, who trained and managed them both, said that he believes Tyson may be quick. But never a man with that build, with that much power, throwing punches that fast. He has not sustained it in this fight, but in flashes you have seen what has impressed so many people in his pro career to date.
You mentioned, of course, the relationship to Patterson. Both fighters groomed by the now late Customato. Their physical attributes are so dissimilar that there is really no direct comparison in style between the 2 fighters.
3 solid right uppercuts by Ferguson, and Tyson did not appear phased by it. You might be able to see here that the fighters are fighting with 8-ounce Everlast thumbless gloves. The 8 ounces instead of 10 ounces would favor a puncher like Tyson, as with the size of the ring we mentioned earlier, 16 feet 8 inches the ring. The thumbless gloves mandatory in New York State in non-title fights. That flurry right there by Tyson, he did not sit down on his punches. He threw a lot of punches, but they were, for him, pity-pat punches. He's got to set himself. Once again, those are arm punches.
Coming to the end of round 3. Already is becoming an interesting and educational experience for Mike Tyson, though a fight, like all the others he's been in which to this point he is totally in control.
More of the Mike Tyson-Jesse Ferguson fight still to come here on Classic Ringside.
Round 4, and Jesse Ferguson now joins 2 fighters, one named Don Halpin, another named Mike Jamieson, as the only two men to have made it this far in the ring with Mike Tyson. In case you have joined us late, the man in the black trunks is the young phenomenon of the heavyweight division, 19-year-old Michael Tyson, originally from Brooklyn, New York, now lives in Catskill, New York. 17 straight knockouts, 12 of them first-round knockouts, coming into this, his toughest test so far.
A few moments ago, Jesse Ferguson looked over to referee Louis Rivera for some help. He just got hit a low blow, as he has been hit a few during this fight. His problem is his trunks are slipping down below his protector.
Now Jesse appears to want to say something to Tyson about the low blows. And the referee warns him not to headbutt Tyson. We want to alert our local stations along the line that at the end of this round, we will be taking a station break. Crowd beginning to get restless. They would like to see Ferguson fighting a somewhat more offensive effort. Though so far, I have to think he's shown some intelligence, Alex.
Well, he's fought to survive and not to win. He just threw one of the very infrequent left hooks that we touted and has, in fact, been his trademark through his career. He hasn't let the punch go because he's been safety-minded throughout this fight to date. He may be just pacing himself, trying to wait until Tyson tires himself out from all of these home run punches he's throwing, and then looking to come on in the late rounds.
Jim Lapley with Alex Wallow. Ringside, ABC Sports live from Troy, New York. Scheduled 10-round heavyweight fight between Mike Tyson and Jesse Ferguson. Tyson in the black trunks, Ferguson in the red. And coming into this round, Tyson has won all 3 previous rounds with almost dead certainty.
All right, great. Scoring of the boxing match.
And you're here to tell us there isn't, I'm sure. Referee Luis Rivera becoming considerably more active now in this 4th round than he was particularly in the first 2 rounds of the fight.
Watch your head.
This was the least active round of the fight. We'll be back from Troy, New York after this message from your local stations. We begin round 5. You were with us at the end of round 4. You saw that immediately following the bell, Mike Tyson delivered a right-hand shot to the body of Jesse Ferguson. Ferguson was quite angry about it. Some of you may have seen Ferguson's cornermen jumping into the ring to keep him away from unnecessary extracurricular activity. Whatever the reason, Ferguson has come out more aggressively in round 5 and beginning to throw that left.
Mike Tyson has not thrown a punch in this round thus far. Ferguson's done all the punching, not much scoring, but he has kept Tyson at bay. As soon as Tyson moves in, he doesn't come in firing. He just stepped in and put his head on Ferguson's shoulder, and Ferguson accepted the clinch until Louis Rivera broke them.
3 weeks ago, Tyson scored a TKO over a fighter named Mike Jamison at 46 seconds of the 5th round in Atlantic City. As of right now, Jesse Ferguson has lasted longer in the ring with the professional Mike Tyson than any of his 17 previous pro opponents. So Ferguson has at least that distinction to carry with him as he attempts to gain confidence as the bout goes on.
It's difficult to judge the motivation of a fighter, but I would say that Mike Tyson is trying to do 2 things here. One, he's trying to pace himself. I think he has some questions about his stamina. He's trying to get some questions answered here as well. And the second thing he's trying to do is be careful, not to get in the way of one of Jesse Ferguson's left hooks. I think he respects Ferguson, and he's just not going to come in firing, leaving himself open as he was able to do against lesser opponents.
Ferguson, in his 10-round loss to Carl the Truth Williams, a TKO defeat, not a decision, was in trouble in both the first and 10th rounds, and now he's in trouble here. Blood coming out from the nose of Jesse Ferguson. The right uppercut of Tyson has put him down. 6. Up at 9 is Jesse Ferguson.
I think that uppercut broke Ferguson's nose, Jim. He is in desperate trouble. He will not last much longer. Rivera almost stopped it there. Mike Tyson's known as a great finisher. Let's see how he does with Ferguson.
Ferguson gamely hanging in, having trouble covering up. 4 seconds, 3 seconds. And Jesse Ferguson barely made it out of round 5. He will stay here now. Crowd is very excited. Blood was spattered around the ring. As I think you're absolutely right, Alex. It appeared that the nose of Jesse Ferguson was broken by the brilliant uppercut. Another look.
Tyson punching from very close quarters. The obvious punch right here is the uppercut. He turns around, digs right to the body, and then comes straight up with the right uppercut. Tyson has a tendency to turn left-handed. He turned left-handed to land that combination and dropped Ferguson, and I think really just accelerated the pace of the fight, turned the tide, and I don't see how Ferguson can fight much longer in that condition. Obviously, the length of time that Mike Tyson went did not tire him out. He was still crisp with his punches, picked his shot, found his opening, came straight up the middle, and landed a devastating right hand.
Beginning of round 6. First time as a professional Tyson's ever been in this round. Ferguson trying to jab.
He has to know how to finish an opponent when he has him hurt. Jesse Ferguson is hurt. Let's see how Mike Tyson does in taking him out.
The left hook did some damage.
Jesse Ferguson not taking the break, holding on to Tyson's left hand. He's just going to hold until Rivera has to absolutely pry them apart. It's not going to be enough for Rivera to say break. He's going to have to get in there and force him apart.
Another left. Delivered in close quarters.
See, Ferguson just is not listening to Rivera at all. He's just going to continue to hold until he just physically forces him out.
Can't say I blame him.
The only thing Rivera can do is what he just did. Give him a warning. And take points away if he continues to do it. Tyson's making a mistake by letting himself get this close to Ferguson. He must maintain a little bit of distance so that he's going to take a point. He's disqualifying him. He disqualified Jesse Ferguson for clinching and refusing to break when ordered. He had warned him earlier in this round. Jesse Ferguson refused to break. The referee, Louis Rivera, disqualified him. And ironically, that breaks Mike Tyson's KO string. That will go down in the books as a win disqualification. It will not be his 18th straight knockout.
One of the dubious distinctions of the year. Jesse Ferguson becomes the first of Mike Tyson's 18 professional opponents not to suffer a knockout. And he did it by almost forcing the referee, Luis Rivera, to disqualify him. 1 minute and 19 seconds of the 6th round. And Mike Tyson's string goes to 18-0, and you saw the explosive punching power, which has made him the talk of the heavyweight division. Let's bring in Mike Tyson right now at this moment. And you can see there the young man who has succeeded once again. Mike, you had to go as far as the 6th round, farther than you have been before as a professional. Were there some moments of frustration during the fight for you?
Because, you know, I never get frustrated because I know we have a 10-round limit. And the crop of heavyweights nowadays having a little difficulty going the full 10 rounds. And the way they have it planned in their mind to beat me is to jab.